Please note, as this is a public meeting, this meeting is being recorded. I've just hit the record button. It will be posted to the City of Beaverton's website. Minutes are still being taken as well. Please make sure you are muted unless you are the active speaker. Attendees are automatically muted, and for any quick comments, you can hold your space bar to unmute and release the space bar to become muted again. Please be aware of items in your video background which could be offensive or distracting to others. You can select the virtual background in the drop-down list next to the video icon. For our attendees, you can type your questions in the question and answer chat box. All questions will be addressed during the public comment time on the schedule. If you'd prefer, you can also click the raise hand button to ask your question directly, and we will make sure to come around to you as soon as we are able to. For attendees who are joining by phone, you can raise your hand by typing *9. If we have multiple people wanting to speak, the order of who will be speaking will be put in the chat box. You are welcome to have open discussion in the chat function at the bottom of your screen, but please be aware that the chat does become public record. I'll be monitoring the chat, so feel free to let me know if you have any technical difficulties, and I will go ahead and troubleshoot with you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Megan. So we'll just call our February meeting to order, and quick review of our agenda tonight. Got a few exciting things. First off, we're going to do our officer elections. After that, then we'll do approval of our meeting minutes from January, have our public comment. Then Councilor Hasan will have a chance to share information from their most recent events. Then here are the two things I think are most exciting that we have tonight. Westside Trail Bridge over Highway 26. This is something the THPRD is going to come and give us a presentation about as they're starting to look at long-term planning. Also, the complete street design update from Washington County. Then we'll finish up with City of Beaverton updates and any comments or announcements our members of our committee have. So let's start out. I know a number of people are relatively new to the committee, so I thought we should just go around and just quick introductions of yourself, how long you've been on the committee for anybody that's here with us from the public, just so they get to know us as well. And why don't we start off with Michael Dunlevy.
Hello, I'm Michael Dunlevy. I've been with the committee since January of 2019, and I live in the Vos neighborhood and like to bike commute and mountain bike.
Thanks. Kara?
Hi, my name's Kara. I've been on the committee for 1 year and 1 month now. Yeah, I live in central Beaverton, and yeah, my wife likes to bike a lot. Not as much now, but I also like to bike, but she was our primary biker. And I'm probably not gonna bike anytime this weekend.
Terrific. Israel?
Israel Morales said, this is my start of my second, well, we'll pass now, we'll start of the second year of my term here. Bike rider as well. My wife and I both love to bike ride a lot, and we are in the kind of Saxon Mountain Beaverton area.
Terrific. Annee?
Hi, I'm Annee, and I am an alternate member of the advisory committee since last month. I live in the Tannisbourne area of Beaverton, and I bike everywhere. I went car-free 10 years ago, and bicycling is my main form of transportation with TriMet as backup. And I do pet care in people's homes, so I'm traveling a variety of routes, all different directions, all different places every day, 365 days a year.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Michael Hashizume, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Michael, I've been on the committee since 2018. I live in the central Beaverton area, and when offices are open, I bike commute. But I also do just a lot of sort of everyday, to the grocery store, around town biking. Very excited for this year.
Terrific. Ananda.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, my name is Ananda, and I'm an Intel retiree, and I've been biking all my life. I have biked all over the world, and I normally bike in Beaverton, going over to Portland, those kind of things, just for recreation. And I live near Walker Road, Fred Meyer, and I'm new to this committee, very new, brand new. Thank you.
Terrific. And Nathanael?
My name is Nathanael May. Like Annie, I am an alternate new this year, and I am scheduled to still go on a bike ride today that I am not looking forward to.
And you're a fan of the soon to be a Kraken hockey team, I see.
I am.
Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Koppel. This is my third year on the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm currently the vice chair of the group. I live near Nike. I used to be a Milliken Way bike commuter, but since everything, now I'm just a very prolific walker with more familiarity with what it's like to be a pedestrian versus what it used to be like to just be a biker. Thanks.
Terrific. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Browning. I'm the liaison from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. I like biking with my family for leisure, and I live in the Five Oaks Triple Creek area.
Cool. John.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Vogler, and I've been with the Bicycle Advisory Committee for a year and a month, and bike whenever I get a chance. I biked on the trolley trail on the Tuesday, and but lately it seems like most of my biking's on the indoor trainer.
Hey, Corey.
Evening, everybody. I'm an ex officio member from TriMet. This is my third year. I'm normally a commuter into Portland, but now I'm just trying to get out for fitness. So that's taking my miles down a little bit, but still trying to get out there.
Very good. And Councilor Hasan?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nadia. This is my second meeting with the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I live in the Five Oaks Triple Creek area, right off of where the Fred Meyer is. And I've got 3 kids, 9, 6, and 1. We will not be biking, but I am excited to be biking like April, May, June, July, August.
The good part of the year. Hey, Kyung.
Hi, everyone. Kyung Park here from the City Events Program. I'm popping in today to just kind of give everyone an update about the events team, what's going on this year, and also specifically Bike Beaverton.
Very good. We'll be touching on that here very shortly. And finally, Jean.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jean Senechal Biggs. I am the staff liaison to the BAC, and I'm also the transportation planning manager here at the City of Beaverton. Welcome. And I'll just say, you'll see that we have, you've already heard from Meghan, and Maggie Tidmore is another member of our admin team, and she will be staffing these meetings for us starting next month because Meghan is going on family leave in early March. So
terrific.
You'll see Maggie next time.
Welcome, Maggie. And finally, Mike Mulligan. I am the current chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I think I've been on the committee somewhere around 11 to 12 years now, and live in the southwest corner of Beaverton. I'm an avid recreational fitness cyclist, both road and gravel riding. Have been a bike commuter in the past and aspire to someday be able to do that again. So again, welcome everybody to the meeting. And I think our next item of business is taking a look at our January minutes. And why don't we take a few minutes, if you haven't had a chance, just to look over those, and then if there are any corrections that we need to make, we can do that, and then we will approve them. One thing I saw, Michael, I think you left your name off of those that were present.
I almost did that this time too.
That's the only thing
Okay,
I
we
saw.
will fix that. We'll fix that.
The existence of the notes are proof that you were there. Anybody have any corrections, additions, anything that we need to do to our notes from last month? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes from January.
I motion to approve the minutes from January.
Okay, and does someone want to second Amanda's motion?
I second that.
All right. Everybody that's in favor, why don't you say aye or raise your hand?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The notes from our January meeting are approved. And that brings us to our officer elections for the chair, the vice chair, and the recorder. Jean, do you want to kind of review over our officer?
Sure, just briefly. And I shared this with all of you ahead of time over email, and I just thought I'd have it in front of you tonight. We have 3 positions to fill: chair, vice chair, and recorder. You can see highlighted on the screen what those duties are. We do this every year. The terms are for 1 year at a time. And you all decided that there were enough new faces you wanted to move this to this meeting this evening. So I think I let our chair preside over this. And it's even specific enough in these bylaws about the order that we do it. So, you know, first we'll look for nominations for chair and vote on those, and vice chair, and then recorder. One thing to note is you are free to nominate yourself. So if you're interested in any of these, speak up. It's totally fine to say you're interested. So.
All right. Thanks so much. So beginning with the chair, that individual is presiding over the deliberations, special meetings in accordance with the bylaws to set those up, preparing the agenda with Jean, and then representing the board for any public events or giving presentations such as to city council. So does anybody want to make a nomination for that position?
I nominate Mike Mulligan, who didn't get a full year for his first term.
All right. I am willing to do that. And happy to do it. Anybody else have somebody that they would like to nominate? Or anyone who wants to nominate themselves? All right, so we have one nominee for this position. Jean, do you take the official vote?
Sure. It is awkward when you're like the chair and then you're nominated again for chair. So I think Mike is probably looking for a vote. We have one nominee on the floor, our only nominee. So I think we just need to have all of you take a vote on Mike Mulligan as chair. I think we can do this as another sort of raise hand.
Well. I vote for Mike.
Okay, great. Okay, raising hands.
I can't vote.
Yeah, I think Mike, you have to excuse yourself.
Yeah, putting my hands back down.
Okay, I think from what I can see, it looks unanimous. So we have a chair. Thank you, Mike. And I think as Amanda said, yes, I think you only had about 6 meetings last year out of our 12 months because of the pause we had with COVID. So thank you again for stepping up to do it.
Happy to be liaison for an exciting 2021. All right. Now we have the vice chair who fulfills that role for the chair in the chair's absence. Nominations. I would nominate Amanda to continue in that role because similarly, she had a shortened period of time in which to be serving in that capacity with the committee. So I would like Amanda if she would continue to be the vice chair to do that.
I accept your nomination, but would like the rest of the committee to think about this vice chair position as being something that's a really excellent stepping stone to get more deeply involved with committee work, and maybe to think ahead to your future. If you're interested in being the chair one day, being the vice chair is a great way to start to get a little deeper and get to know those responsibilities. So either self-nominate yourselves this time around, or please think about it for next year.
Does anybody want to self-nominate or have somebody that they would like to nominate as well? All right, Jean, so I think we'll take a vote for a singular nominee for the vice chair. Everyone want to say aye?
Aye. Amanda.
Aye.
Everybody else in agreement? I can't see faces right now to see if people are raising hands. Did that seem unanimous, Jean? Jean?
You're muted, Jean.
Jean, you're muted.
Oh, it always happens. Cara, are you raising your hand? Is that an aye vote or are you trying to say something? And you're muted now.
It's an aye vote. I kept putting my hand down and realized I couldn't see anyone else, so I didn't know.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I think we have a vice chair.
All right.
Thank you, Amanda.
And then the final role that Michael has done such a wonderful job of is the recorder. The recorder shall record the minutes of each regular meeting, prepare the written minutes and give to the city staff at least 2 weeks before the next meeting, and shall record, prepare, and maintain minutes consistent with Oregon public meeting and record laws. So does anybody have a nomination or somebody that wants to self-nominate for taking on that recorder role? Or if Michael wants to continue, he can self-nominate as well.
I'd nominate Michael if he's still willing to proceed with that role.
And I would certainly second that because you were brilliant at it. Anybody else, though, would like to take that on? And Michael, are you accepting?
I'm happy to continue on with this, but if anyone else is interested, I'm more than happy to cede the floor.
I will say I heard from one other member with interest, and I'm not going to say their name unless they speak up. Okay, well, hearing no one else, we can
have
no one
a
else is gonna-
vote
so, yeah.
for Michael Hashizume continuing as the recorder for 2021. If you so wish that, raise your hand. Does it look like we have everyone vote there, Jean?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, Michael, for continuing with that role. That's terrific. It's much appreciated.
Happy to do it.
All right, so that brings us to our public comment. And Megan, I know you said that I think there were a couple people that were in the meeting, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I'd just like to open it up for folks that are out there attending the meeting. If you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to share with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, please type those in or indicate with the raised hand, and Megan can get you in so we can hear from you.
So far, seeing no comments, but I will let you know if something pops up.
Okay, and by all means, anybody that's watching, if a question comes up, please type that in and we will address it as we're moving along. And thanks for coming in and tuning in on this icy night.
So Mike, let's have Kyung pop in here.
Okay,
with his update, since we're ahead of schedule. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Events have always been changing so much lately. Wasn't able to give advance notice to get on the agenda. So I really appreciate the couple minutes here. In general, we are very hesitant to still do in-person events because of the pandemic. There are some good news, such as the vaccine rollout and stuff, but basically our risk management has determined November as a potential start date for some of the larger events from the city. That obviously puts Bike Beaverton, which would have been scheduled for this May, as just a canceled event. And also the September date would be kind of up in the air. So basically I just wanted to pop in and say, hey, it's pretty much 99% confirmed that we probably won't be able to hold Bike Beaverton in May. The September date, we could probably check back in sometime in July and see how things are going. But for sure, right now, the May date would not work out. Just so you know, we are doing in-person events, so it's not like we are completely shut down on that. It's just that for events where we expect 300-400 people in attendance, it just becomes kind of like a logistical challenge to try to keep everything clean and safe. So, our in-person events have been trying to abide by the guidelines of 50 people max, including people on site for staffing and such, which doesn't really give too much of a opportunity for outreach and connecting with the community. So with that in mind, I wanted to just kind of open it up for questions if you had any regarding Bike Beaverton. I know for a fact in 2022 in May, we'll probably be able to have the event in full with the bike ride and the vendors and everybody out there. So.
Perfect. Well, thanks for the update. Anybody have any questions? I think I speak for everybody in the committee. We really appreciate all your support and understand everything that you guys are managing through with this. I know just in my professional role in senior living communities and seeing how their teams that are doing entertainment, things of that nature, how much they have to be able to adjust and be flexible with it. So I certainly understand and appreciate again everything you're doing. My curiosity question is, last time we did, or last May, we did like a virtual, we put out some maps and told people to kind of do their own Bike Beaverton ride. Do you want to try to do something similar to that?
Yeah. So we could try a virtual version. It's right now, a lot of the virtual events that we've had, such as night market, movie trivia night, they haven't really been received too well. We haven't had the engagement numbers that we're looking for, including the maps that we had published last year on our site. They're still up. I don't have the numbers of like visits on it, but it's just, it doesn't really have that impact. So it's kind of been like, hey, you know, let's kind of wait it out. And if we come up with something creative, it's something I definitely want to explore.
Okay. That sounds good.
Kian, can I just ask what kind of events you are planning as the events team, just so these folks hear like what's coming otherwise?
Yeah, so I guess our signature event for night market, we are still trying to plan that out as an in-person event. So kind of think of it as a farmer's market, but it'll be controlled time ticketing where like you'll have to register, pre-register, and you'll only be able to access the event from like say 4:30 to 5, and then another group of people would have another batch of tickets would go out at like 5:15 to 5:45 or so, so that we can like make sure that only like 50 people are on site at a time. So that, since that event is kind of like the headliner of the Beaverton events program and some of our other city programs, it's something that, hey, we're willing to put in our resources for. So that might be the only in-person event that we're pursuing this year. A lot of the other events have just kind of been, we're refocusing into not doing virtual, but something a bit more like permanent. For example, installation of murals. There's a project called the People's History of Beaverton that we're working on, where like someone had pitched like an augmented reality app that we might be able to install in the city so that people can pull out like historical images like on site of places. So it's our way to try to figure out, is this the way that we can connect with the community and provide some like cool info. But in general, right now, we're still pivoting and trying to figure out what can we really do.
Okay.
Great, thanks. And Annee, you had your hand raised, I think. Did you have a question, or are you all set? You're muted. Annee, you're muted.
It was just the same as my chat question, which we segmented into anyway, so it was irrelevant. But thank you.
Just one idea popped in my head is along the lines of kind of the history of Beaverton. If we put together sort of a route where people would like kind of find some of like little hidden interesting things that are in Beaverton or something like that. If we could do something that's on low traffic roads or something of that nature that might allow people to kind of explore their community a little bit more, maybe that's something we could play around with.
Yeah, I like those. I definitely leave it open for virtual events or like some smaller engagement things. THPRD is also kind of struggling to like figure out ways to connect, and they have a lot bigger like schedule than we do. Like for example, they're doing trail fitness classes and stuff like that. So I think there could be some opportunities definitely for bicycle related things.
Okay, just open up our creative minds a little bit.
I'm sorry. I will put my email in the chat, and please feel free to contact me if you have any ideas, like you wanted to just even meet with me sometime to just kind of brainstorm. Because honestly, like it kind of sucks for me to be saying, hey, we're always canceling events and you know, virtual events aren't really working. But you know, that doesn't mean I don't want to close the door completely on the whole topic. So
wonderful. Well, again, thanks again for all of your efforts and for your flexibility in trying to navigate this weird world.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So, Nadia, tell us about the retreat that you were going on last month, and what else is happening with the council?
It's funny. I was like, okay, can I organize my thoughts on this heart cut piece of paper from first grade room parent duties? And I did. So we had a council retreat that was, I think it was MLK weekend. And a lot of it was kind of ways of working. So some of it was feedback for the interim city manager just on things that we wanted to see as a city council. And then we did just some, what are our expectations of the mayor? What are our expectations of city council? Because as you all know, we are in a new form of government as a council manager form of government. So a lot more ways of working, not necessarily actionable things, but more like how are we going to continue to be cohesive? And feel free to ask questions or pop questions in the chat, because I definitely want to make sure y'all feel updated. As you know, we do have an interim city manager, so he's with us through the mid of this year. So we're beginning the recruitment for a full-time city manager and putting together what does that look like. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's the same. And it's like, it's actually not the same, because an interim city manager was really focused around change and transition. This city manager in theory will support our city, for the next 2, 5, 10 years. So the recruitment process is about to get kicked off pretty soon. We also have a town hall coming up. I think it's in March. So keep your eyes open. I'm sure Jean will share information with you all at some point. We had a meeting 2-3 weeks ago where the Human Rights Advisory Commission shared their recommendations around police, and we are looking to discuss that at our next Tuesday meeting. So 2 nights ago around 10 p.m. the mayor did mention that we'll revisit the topics that were presented to us by the Human Rights Advisory Commission. If you are so bored in your life, Tuesday night, we had a really interesting presentation on racial equity in housing. And I was definitely really just impressed by some of what we learned and what we talked about. And so it was a presentation given by one of the city staff. Another piece of work that's going to start to show up, not super applicable to transportation, but just generally speaking, is this concept of middle housing and how we start to build homes in the small city that we have. So there's a lot of work being done around middle housing. And then last but not least, we did get a really big update on the Patricia Research Center of Arts, PRCA, yes. And that obviously was supposed to open, I don't know exactly when, but it's obviously not opening anytime soon, but just learning more about that really beautiful center that we've got in the smack dab of downtown. Happy to take any questions or comments that y'all have as to what we're doing in City Council.
I have a question. So I know that the city has sort of surveyed people about these middle housing options. Is there any sort of action that council or the city itself is planning to take around that in the sort of near future? Or what is the sort of discussion around that topic?
I'll give my version, but Jean, I don't know if you might have other stuff to offer. I just know that one of the things I need to review is really getting my head around the middle housing work. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And so it's going to be, hi friend. I like little children, so just hello. So it's going to kind of be, I think a lot of it is us figuring out what we think it looks like. I know in a meeting we discussed, are we going to try to be really, really meet the needs of what these sort of rules want, or are we just going to try to do the bare minimum? I know a couple councilors made it sound like we're going to go above and beyond. Some councilors said we're not really sure. I know personally I just need to do a lot of homework. I think Is there going to be a public forum for discussion? I don't really know. I think if you have opinions, I'd highly recommend, we made it a decision to all publish our emails on our website. So feel free if you have feedback on something like that or want to share something. I think it's citymail@Beaverton goes to all of us. And then if you want to email us individually, you can also do that as well. Jean, am I missing anything?
You know, I know about this much about the housing work that my colleagues in community development in the planning division are leading. So Nadia, you may actually know a little bit more than me. But do watch. I have heard wonderful things about that presentation. I need to watch it myself. But there's just a lot of work happening around the state because of changes in a direction that's coming from the state and how we respond. So it's really important work to think about how do we create housing types that really reflect the needs of you know, all people, and it's in size and housing of size of housing and type, and you know, lots of opportunity that we're trying to shape. So. Yeah.
If you have an opinion, please, I would encourage any of you to always, you know, you're the public, and so you're our community and we want to hear from you. And if it means shooting us an email, I think the best way to get to all of us is just to do the city one. If you want to just send it to me, that's okay too, but to make sure everyone really hears something that you want to share or talk about, as a new counselor, like I value that, and I definitely would want to know if you had some opinions or thoughts, because I want to know and I want to hear from you all.
Terrific. Quick question, as far as the permanent city manager versus interim, is Kurt Wilson as interim, is he expressing interest in the long-term position, or is he someone that can apply for that? I was just curious.
Good question. He can apply. You know, all roads point to, he doesn't seem, I'm getting the impression that he's kind of like, hey, I'm here for interim and this is what I'm feeling. Don't quote me, but he is able to apply if he wants to.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, comments? That's all great information to have. I'll refer to it as the message from the heart. Exactly. Well,
also have this part if you want to see it.
Great. Well, feel free to stick in the meeting and any questions or things as we get our presentations, and look forward to ongoing working. And when we get into that sweet spot of the weather for you in riding, we'll have to get some little socially distanced ride together for everyone. Okay, so once again, we're running ahead of schedule here, Jean. So for our Westside Trail Bridge, is
yeah,
Jeannine?
Jeannine is here.
Here, all right.
I saw her name. Look, she's there.
I'm here. So if you're ready for me, I will share my screen.
All right.
Let's see. Hopefully you're seeing that now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we can see
We
it.
use MS Teams, and it's always one of those back and forth. Am I doing this right? You'd think after almost a year I would get it, but sorry. My name is Jeannine Rustad. I'm the planning manager at Tualatin Hills Park and Rec. It's nice to be here. Jean, thank you for inviting me. This is a really exciting project. The bridge over the Westside Trail Bridge over Highway 26. And as I said at our community meeting, this is not only a passion for me because I'm in Parks and Rec, and who doesn't love Parks and Rec and trails, but this is literally also eventually going to be this trail in my backyard through the BPA power corridor. So I am committed to seeing this through. I have a habit of talking very fast. I will try to slow it down since I think we have a little extra time here. I will also warn you that I am not an engineer, so I am going to speak hopefully in plain English. If there are very technical questions, I'm going to ask Jean to help me get those down. and I will get the information back to you because again, I am not an engineer. I do not play one on TV. So jumping right in, I kind of rearranged slides from a stakeholder meeting we did, but I wanted to show this map because we've got this question several times. Why are you working on the bridge when you don't have the trail to the north and the south? Well, we have just applied for the Oregon Community Paths Grant to get the trail from 158th and Walker up to the south landing of the bridge. So our study area is from Greenbrier to Cornell. And then the grant we just applied for trail design is also for this section to the north. So we're really looking at getting the design for these trails and the bridge and getting this ready. I would love to see all of it starting under construction in 5 to 7 years. But even without those connecting trails, this bridge is crucial for this area of Beaverton and Washington County because it's going to connect people from their homes to significant employers, to retail, to education. We have the Sunset High School, and of course, major recreation centers. Our main campus is right here. So again, this is the trail we're looking at. We did have a survey a few months ago, just very preliminary, to see what was important in the bridge design to people. And what we heard is first and foremost, traffic safety. Accessibility, which accessibility really was accessibility in the technical term of Americans with disability, but also connectivity. We had some comments on nature and sustainable design, aesthetics, and resting places. And I'm going to hit the big topics throughout this presentation. I'm sure it'll come as no surprise to you, but how people use the Westside Trail. 90% walk or run. I am one of those you'll see out there doing that. 69% bike. I'm trying to get better about that. Then scooter, skateboard, or other recreation, and a very small percentage with mobility devices. One of the reasons we wanted to undertake this study because we knew this bridge is going to be challenging to fit into here. And our consultant came up with
Did Jeannine freeze for everybody?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I will text her. She's probably realizing she's frozen. Hopefully she still has power at her house.
It looks like her screen went dark.
Okay. Yes, she just said, did I freeze? Yes.
How cool
call
does the
back.
trail look though?
That does look like it'd be interesting.
Okay. She's gonna come back. She got booted, so. Phone.
I'm keeping an eye out for her.
Okay.
I can share one other update, as you all
Okay.
may know.
Sure.
We have a
Sure.
new seat open on Beaverton City Council, so that I think the filing has started. You can file. If you're also wondering, we are going to have a couple seats on school board and THPRD that are going to open. So there's an election coming up in May. If you want to talk or you want to run, think about it.
Okay, so she just she just texted me back and said her Wi-Fi is down now. So maybe the ice storm and snow is hitting where she is. Okay, let me see. What?
she could always call in. Great feedback actually from one of our attendees. She could call in to the call-in number, but she would not be able to present.
Oh, hold on. Connecting to hotspot.
Perfect.
Yes.
Always a workaround. Yes.
And just so he knows, Benjamin, I do see your question, and I'll make sure the presenter receives that question.
I'll give her another minute.
Okay. Favoring this.
I could jump to the very end.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't you do
Let me do that. Okay. Okay, let me just say,
thought.
okay, great. Let me go find that. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so I can see things. Here we go. So this just a couple of sort of newsy updates from the city of Beaverton, and this is what I emailed to all of you today. So I'll just hit the highlights. Councilor Hasan already mentioned the city manager recruitment. And through that, we're really renewing our commitment to being a city that's welcoming and lively and responsive. And we're looking for that long-term city manager to keep the community's needs and wishes at the center of all that we do here at City of Beaverton. So our search process for the position's begun. And it includes hiring an external search firm for the facilitation support, engagement, and opportunities for feedback. And initial plans call for the competitive process to begin in March, so that's just a month from now. And a decision by City Council is expected to be announced in sort of early summer. We are really looking for the community's help in identifying the ideal characteristics that will complement what we're doing today and guide us into the future. So if you are interested in following this process, you can share your thoughts and sign up to get email updates. If you go to our website, beavertonoregon.gov/citymanager. And just so you all know, the city manager is a council appointed position, and that person oversees most city operations, departments, and the budget. And really that person's there to assist the mayor and the city council with pulling together the city's vision and priorities and directives and putting those into action. So as we've talked about before here when we've met, this is all because the Beaverton voters approved a new city charter that became operational January 1st. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to beavertonoregon.gov/charter. So there's my update on city manager.
Is back.
Yeah, Jeannine is back.
My apologies. It has been a day. We had a backup done and at work, and we lost some files, one of which was this presentation. So I recreated, and of course, unstable network with everybody being online. So my apologies. I'm back. Let me share again.
All right. And no worries, Jeannine. We shared other things while you were gone. So we filled the time.
Awesome, thank you. So back to, I don't know where I dropped off, but I actually want to backtrack because one slide I realized I cut out was we had our consultant do a streetlight study, which uses, I think, cell phone data, but we really wanted to get a good picture of who this bridge may serve, because we don't have a practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For us, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And what we found is that this bridge definitely is going to reach underserved populations, so those that live below the poverty level, and some of our BIPOC communities. So that is very important for our board. But also why we undertook this project is the challenges that we face. We're in the BPA corridor, so we have the power lines, both BPA and PGE, running north-south through the power line corridor. Then we have PGE and telecom, both on the north and south, running perpendicular to the power corridor. We have the highway, of course. We suspected and we have confirmed that there is a wetland in this area. There's also a perennial stream. The good news with all of the studies we've done is archaeological digs showed nothing of significance. The only historic structures that are in the right of way are ironically the BPA power lines, which we can't interfere with anyway, and the highway itself. But we did boring digs, and we have found, and this is again technical information, I'll explain as best I can, that we do have liquefaction with the soils here. So that impacts or gives us another challenge of how we get the borings and the structural, the pilings in so that this bridge will withstand an earthquake. So the stage of the project right now is we're looking at alternative alignments that we can fit within this corridor for both the approaches and the bridge. And these show the two alignments. These little black dots are the power line poles, and there are restrictions with how close we can get to the poles and the wires. And I know enough to be dangerous that they do differ a bit between PGA-E and BPA. But again, it's a limiting factor. You can see the big wetland with its buffer that takes a lot of the area to the north. Again, this is north with Cornell Road. There's a lot in common with the two alignments, and a few things to point out here is with this one, we are recommending to our board that we don't have the short direct approach because this approach has better sight lines, so it's safer. And I think if you're familiar with our Waterhouse Trail where it crosses Walker Road, that we have something similar. And then the other significant difference is we have one curved option for the bridge. Again, engineering, I know enough that that curve pushes the limits of engineering. So it is going to be more challenging, both with the curve, but also the structure itself. We are looking at prefabricated structures that we can, basically what they did with the new pedestrian crossing over 405, you have it laid out and then you bring in the equipment to drop it into place. With the curved structure, because it is longer, we don't think it'll fit within this area. So we'd have to find somewhere to stage somewhere else. As I go through options 1 and 2, there is a difference over here with the grade. Our goal is to remain under 5%, so we will be recommending to the board to do the option that has more cut and fill. So this is option 1, and this is a straight bridge. You can see here that this option with this on this side, we have a small stretch that is above 5%. It's still below 8%. So it does meet ADA requirements. I forgot to mention that another challenge we have is with grade to be able to meet Columbia Way. With those power lines too, you have to be so many feet above the highway, but so many feet below the power lines. So that's option 1. Option 2, and I have 2 images of bridges that show the differences. This has the more curved. We're starting to put an alternatives analysis table together that wasn't quite ready for today, but really the difference between these 2 options as far as those of us that'll be walking, running, and biking in this area, it's about 50 to 100 feet. So it's not huge for that. It gets to constructability that makes the challenge. The impacts of both these options on the wetlands is one is the straight version is 20 feet permanent impacts versus 10 feet with a curve. So it's really nominal difference. There is more of an impact. Actually, the temporary ones are about a wash between the wetland buffer and the wetland itself. So again, there's not a lot to differentiate between these other than this challenge with constructability. So design considerations, that access and connectivity was something we heard from the first survey. So we will have wayfinding, definitely Greenbrier to point people. We have a few major employers to the south here, as well as our complex. And then as you come down Columbia Way, we are working with Columbia Sportswear because we want to make sure that we can use this access, especially so students from the south can use the bridge to get to the high school. And then some more wayfinding to the north here. It's going to be our typical signs that you see along our trails, and we do try to remain consistent with the intertwine. Safety was another concern that we heard, and Greenbrier to the south, while it is not a busy street, this is one of my running routes, and I can tell you that traffic does go at a good clip around here. So we'll work, I believe this is a county road, but we'll work to make sure we have safe crossings. Again, working with Columbia Sportswear, and I have an illustration of the treatment we want to do on Columbia Way to help notify drivers to look out for bikes and pedestrians. And then of course, Cornell Boulevard, or excuse me, Cornell Road, making sure we have that offset to give the greatest sight lines, but then working with the county, my preference would be to see a rapid flashing beacon or something more visible than just a sign to alert drivers, because again, Cornell Road, while the speed limit through here is reduced, it's a high volume roadway. Safety on the trail itself is also a concern. We've had a few questions about, can we separate the bikes from the walkers and runners? And with the constraints that we have, we don't have the area to do that on the approaches or the bridge. So the trail itself will be our standard 12-foot trail, which is our regional trail standard with 2-foot shoulders. The bridge is going to be 14 feet wide, 16 feet from outside to outside. That is the limit of what we can do with these prefabricated bridges. And then you'll see here, we will have striping, especially on the bridge and where there may be curves and limited sight lines, to keep at least the travel lanes separated. Another example of striping we have on trails. We do want to work, we're in the BPA corridor, so that can be a challenge with lightings, but you'll see on the end, I have our website. We have a survey that's going live tomorrow. And one of the questions we have is preference for types of lighting. We're looking at bollard or pedestrian scale lighting for the trail. It's a movement we've made over the past 5 years. I've been with the district that where a trail is a regional trail and a major commuting route, we think we're realizing the reality that it's not just something that's used from dawn to dusk, that people will commute, and we live in Oregon, we get some dark winters. We also want to work with Odot with what kind of lighting can we have on the bridge to give that personal safety. We will maintain the trails to our standards as well as the bridge. Accessibility, the trail itself will be asphalt. We're looking at this fiber reinforced polymer, which is shown here for the ramps up to the bridge, both the north and the south. And this is a substance that's been used. I know Washington, DC has a bridge. They have winters that are very similar to us, but actually with more freezing weather. And I think the other example we saw was from Utah. So again, more extreme weather. It's very important for us that when we build something new, we are doing it with surfaces that won't become slippery. And then the bridge decking itself will be concrete. Here's a rendering of what the approach from the south, so Greenbrier looking north, could look like, 5% grade. So if you hear barking, I have a dog that's starting to growl, my apologies. And then this is the north of the bridge, and this is Columbia Way. And we do want to have this raised, again, to give another visual cue to drivers. This is currently the Columbia parking lot for their employees. So we are taking some of their parking. We're working with them. They've been a great partner to date. And this is looking north towards Cornell. Here's a few examples. Aesthetics has come up from our board, from the community. And what I tell people is when I started meeting with consultants before we put out the RFP, People ask me what's more important, the aesthetics or the cost? And I answered yes. They're both very important. We know this is going to be an iconic bridge. This is a landmark for Beaverton over the highway, but we also want to be responsible public stewards. We know that the cost of the bridge with the approaches is in the range of probably 15 to 20 million. We have asked the consultant to give us cost estimates that breaks down if we want to have art that you can hang from the bridge. I'll have some examples of, we do need fencing. Rather than fencing, can we do some nice design panels? But 2 examples of a straight bridge versus the curved. The challenge for us, of course, while with all the footings this has, is we'll have footings before the highway and then in the median of the highway, but have greater distances. So this gets to the paneling. Again, look for that survey. I can send Jean the link once it's live to send out to you, but we have several different kinds, whether it's the artistic kind, this more cut, if we want a nature theme on it, and then different types of lighting we can either incorporate into the bridge and also the approaches. And as I said, hopefully the trail. Another thing that's on that survey is the treatment, because we're looking at steel structure. Do we want something that's painted, or do we want more of that weatherized look? There are some slight differences with maintenance. There's pros and cons to each. So please go to that survey. Here's our website for this project. Give us your input. This is our second of 3 surveys we'll ultimately have. We were supposed to have a Love Your Trails celebration at Pioneer Park on Saturday, but we looked at the weather and made the decision late this afternoon that even if we don't get the snow, we want this to be a fun and comfortable event for our staff as well as everybody else coming out. So we've decided to postpone it. It's tentatively February 27th, but we need to confirm with maintenance that they're available. So again, we'll get this information out, and I'm happy to take your questions. And I don't know if you want me to keep the PowerPoint up while we do questions.
Yeah, I'd love to go back and see the slide that had the proposed location where the bridge is going. I think it might have been one of the first ones you showed.
Oh, the aerial with
the map.
There. That one?
This one? Earlier one, because I'm trying to place it on a current THPRD trail map, so I can see where it is relative to the current Waterhouse.
Yes. So let me find
That's the one.
Yep. So here's Westside Trail and here's Waterhouse.
Yep.
We actually need to update this because, oh no, that's correct. We did update it. So we show that we got that piece here. There's a little on street up here. And the Westside Trail, if you're familiar, that's ultimately going to be 40 miles roughly that cut from the Tualatin River up through our district and then heading east into Portland and then to the Willamette River.
I do have some thoughts, but I don't want to hog time that other people might also want to use. So somebody else should ask a question before all the ones I thought of.
We do have a couple questions in the chat. Would you like me to read those, or do you just want to take a look at the chat?
Let me.
Oh, why don't you read them?
Okay.
Yeah, if you could.
So one question from an attendee is, what will WST 14 look like? The segment to the south of that has the same design as a sidewalk, and the bike lanes are near it are not family friendly.
Yes, so there is a small segment on 158 south of Walker that's curb tight right now. We are waiting for redevelopment in this area to get it to the ultimate 14-foot width. There's a small segment, again, curb type, but then south of that, there is the 12-foot trail. So we are looking for 12 feet with 2-foot shoulders. And we are working with Washington County right now that with the road work they're going to be doing on Walker Road, that they have to move our driveway. So we've asked them to construct that segment of trail at least up to the overflow parking lot for our softball fields. We have, Washington County has opened a conversation with Nike to try and get some additional right of way, because if you're familiar with this area where Baker Rock Coffee is and the gas station and some apartments, that we could have some pinch points. It's not ideal, but the alternative was try to get through our campus and go to Pioneer Street. Since I moved out here 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, wow, I think. Actually, no, it's almost 2 years ago. Pioneer Street, it would be a sharrow. It would be a small sidewalk, and we talked to Washington County, putting the trail through the woods on our property. It just felt like it was better, even if we have a small pinch point here, to get it up into the power lines as quickly as possible, where we can go to our 12-foot trail, 2-foot shoulders. Was there another question in the chat? Sorry, I don't know how to get to the chat when I'm
No, that's all good. That's the only question in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, no, sorry.
No.
There's one from Councilor Hasan. If we want to access the survey, will it be posted on a specific website or social media page?
We will have it on our website. I know our communications folks are talking about doing a social media blast. And again, I will send the link to Jean so she can send it out to all of you.
Hi, so you know what, I put your project webpage in the agenda. I put a hyperlink to it. I'll just put it in the chat right now. So it'll be in, it's in multiple places.
And the great thing that even with snow, since we all work from home, it will still go live.
Great.
Another question in the chat. Why won't the trail continue south through the Nike campus? They have a trail already constructed there.
The original plan for the Westside Trail was for it to go through the Nike campus, but I used to work in Hillsborough, and I'm very familiar with how Intel was, that they have a lot of sensitive research development going on, and they do not want to open their campus up to the public. So we worked with them to put it on 158th, so on the edge. Originally, the thought was that it would be on the north side of Walker, but again, we're in some conversations to see if we can at least get it on the south side of Walker, so you have continuity till you get to a crossing here, and more room so we don't have those pinch points. But these were negotiations well before me joining the district, and that's where we are.
Say other members of the committee, if you have questions, why don't we ask those, and then Amanda, we can come back around because I know you have a few and then I have a couple as well.
And when I stop sharing, what I'll do is I'll put my email in the chat. So if you have some you think of after the fact, you can contact me directly.
So anybody else chime in if you have a question for Jeannine?
I'm a little curious. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I know in the past when I believe it was Bruce Barbarash came and spoke to the committee, he talked about some of the challenges when it comes to lighting and sort of balancing between safety and visibility and sort of being respectful of, wildlife and stuff like that. Is that coming into play with this project in terms of going over the wetlands? Are there any sort of lighting restrictions that are going to be in place there?
It remains to be seen. This is an isolated wetland versus being in a natural area corridor. So I think we'll have better luck here. We're also not behind houses in this area, as this Westside Trail segment 14 will probably be more challenging because that is behind houses and we want to be sensitive to homeowners. But this being a commercial and industrial area, the hope is we can get lighting here. But that's why we're saying we're qualifying it that if we can get there with BPA, ODOT, and ODF and W.
Great. There's another question that's just appeared in the chat and the Q&A. So thank you, Ian, for putting it in both. I'll go ahead and read it. So Ian says, while I've been impressed with the more recent trail segments that THPRD has built, I felt that they are let down significantly by the road crossings. How is THPRD going to push Beaverton, Odot, and Washington County to make safe crossings for pedestrians and bikes?
This is an ongoing conversation I'm having with especially the county. I think the city and THPRD have partnered very well to get in some significant crossings. If you're familiar with the Waterhouse Trail north of the highway, we have several locations where there's no curb cuts, there's no crossings. We worked with the county in those neighborhood areas to get a simpler process where it's not going to cost us hundreds of thousands in studies. So we're hoping to get some of those in the summer. With this being early in the designs, as I said, with Cornell Road, we know that that is a heavily used roadway, and we want, even before if all we built first was the bridge and the north and south segments came later, the fact of the matter is people are still going to cross the street. And we need, my preference, rapid flashing beacon. I've also been pushing the county more and more on arterials. North Bethany was an example where we had a segment of trail on the east side of the Kaiser Road. It's going to be built on the west side. People live on both sides. There's a school on the west side, and they had been pushing back about it's not warranted yet to have that rapid flashing beacon. And I just said, look, let's get the traffic patterns used to it. Let's get the drivers used to it. People are still going to cross. So it's the planners versus engineers, and you have a wonderful advocate in Jean. She understands both speak better than I do. So I know where we're talking city roads, we've got a great partnership, and I can just tell you, I will push and be dogmatic on these.
Great, thanks, Jeannine. Okay.
Amanda, did
and then,
you want to? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this might be a little bit of a follow-up to that. Just, is there a possibility of a stoplight at Cornell? And I think that just ties back with the question that we just kind of heard before. So definitely sounds like we're going to be looking at those at the ends and where we connect into the rest of the street network. Okay. Great. Okay, Mike, you were going to say, I think you're going to pass the mic to Amanda.
Amanda, why don't you ask your questions, and I have just a couple of quick follow-ups too.
Yep. So a couple of the questions that were already asked actually neatly tie into a few of my thoughts. I am a Waterhouse Trail girl, and some of the things that have made it very difficult to fully utilize Waterhouse, both north and south of 26, is that north of 26, you have curbs at every street crossing. So you have to figure out what you're going to do to continue on the trail. So I'm hoping that is addressed on the west side. Also, the dotted line that gets you across 26 from South Waterhouse to North Waterhouse is not very fun to be a biker on, going on that overpass and interchange over 26. So I was just going to posit that when the west side is completed, it's entirely possible that bikers with a little more time on their hands are going to try to use that as their 26 bypass. To get around, just going from Waterhouse onto Greenbrier, taking the nice new overpass, and then figuring out how to loop back onto Waterhouse. So you just might need to consider that trail use possibility. And then to comment on the two different types of overpasses, things to consider from a pure just cycling point of view. One positive of having a lower, easier percent grade is that it is going to make it easier for families like with little kids or a lot of folks in their party to stay together on the bridge, you know, to be able to have folks who might have trouble with higher grades be able to keep themselves biking over it. And further, one unintended positive of having a curved bridge is it might cut down on the top speed that a cyclist would take over that bridge, possibly making it a little safer for your pedestrians.
Good points. And we're starting to get some costs. Now, it doesn't take into account the additional costs we may have in construction, but it's in the grand scheme of things, the difference between the two is $500,000 on each end. In something of this magnitude, I'm not sure that's a break it deal. I do have to say with the Waterhouse Trail, I totally get what you're saying. That trail was built before we have the standards that we do. So, and we got in our own way. I'm friends with Erin Wardell from the county, who's your next presenter. So she's like, we hear you. I'm like, they have actually been partnering with us to try and get those curb cuts in. But we got in our own way for a while because the trail is substandard there. I think it's 4 to 6 feet when we want that trail to be more like 10 feet. And we were like, if we're going to address it, we should redo it all. We're finally at the point where we're saying, no, let's get the curb cuts in. We can figure out how to get funding to widen the trail at a later point. So the good news is this is a regional trail. We need to make sure it can be used as a commute route. And with doing it from scratch in today's day and age, we want to get it right when we put it in. I'm sure 20 years from now, people will be looking back and say, what were they thinking? But I like your points, and I will make note of that on the curved slowing speeds and getting 5% or below for the slope is our objective here, one of them.
Terrific. I think Amanda really kind of addressed many of my thoughts. That 3% kind of jumped out at me with the curve versus the straight, and being able to have that lower grade, I think really does invite greater usage of it for all families and whoever is using it. And I do like some of the creative treatments you're seeing as far as the artwork or things like that, where you're going to be able to enclose it a bit. So just protection from anybody potentially throwing something off the bridge on the 26 or self-harm or things of that nature. I think are really, there's creative ways to make that bridge safe for everyone, both under it and on it.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jeannine. And we'd certainly like you to come back and keep us updated on this as we're moving along. And we'll make sure that people are taking advantage and giving that input.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you. Let me stop sharing. And I will put my email in the chat.
Terrific. And I hope your Wi-Fi comes back.
Actually, I'm okay if it doesn't for today.
All right. Well, you take care and be safe with the weather.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Well, that was great. And that now brings us on to Erin and Stacy from Washington County are going to be doing a presentation on their complete street design update.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having us this evening. My name is Erin Wardell. I'm the Principal Transportation Planner for Washington County, and with me is Stacy Shetler, our County Engineer, and Reza Farhoodi, who is an Associate Planner at the County and my Deputy Project Manager on this work. I'm going to share my screen so we can go through some slides. Please feel free to jump in, particularly if I'm using any terms that are not familiar to you. I'm happy to pause and do definitions. Is that PowerPoint showing up now?
We have it.
Yes, we're There you go. Perfect.
Great. Okay. I'm going to start going through these slides, and then at the end of it, I'm going to jump over and show you some images that are on our online open house when we get to the part about the bicycle pedestrian treatments. So that'll happen a little bit later. So here we are, a little bit of background on the project we're talking about this evening, our Complete Streets Design Update. So several years ago, Washington County identified a need to update our road design and construction standards to represent the fact that our community's needs have evolved over time. We have a lot of different types of communities in Washington County. We also have a number of different planning documents, adopted plans, guidance documents that were containing different pieces of information about street design. And so there was an interest in consolidating it into our actual road design and construction standards to make things easier for all of us who are out there building projects and for developers as well. So that's a little bit of the background. We've been doing the work in earnest for about 18 months, but we've been thinking about it for a number of years before that. So our objectives for this project were to develop design standards that implement the enabling policies we have in our transportation system plan and reflect our multiple land use contexts, different road users and the needs of different road users, evolving community expectations for what roads are and what function they serve in our communities, multimodal throughput, so thinking about bicycles and pedestrians and different types of road users in addition to automobiles, and then having the ability to incorporate flexibility in design speeds and lane widths, again, reflecting different community contexts. So for the purposes of this study, we focused on arterial roads and collector roads within the urban and urbanizing areas. And I do want to take a moment and define arterials and collectors for people who may not be familiar with those terms. Arterials are the major roadways in the county that are not highways. So they're larger facilities, think Murray, 158th, Cornell. They connect communities to the highway system and to major destinations. Collectors are the next level down from arterials. So collectors are roads like Parkway or Butner. They connect to arterials and they connect other community destinations into the arterial system. They connect to neighborhood routes and local roads as well. So we also have neighborhood routes and local roads in the county, but this particular effort isn't focused on those as much. And then as a county, we also manage rural roads, but this project is not proposing any updates to our rural road standard at this time. So I wanted to do a couple of definitions before we get into this anymore. The first is, what are complete streets and why did we choose that for the name of our project? So Complete Streets is a program used in lots of different places. It's a way of thinking about roadways as being designed to provide safe and accessible travel for everyone, all users. All travel is equitably supported. Vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles, wheelchairs, and public transportation. So it's a very holistic way of thinking about our roadway system. And we thought that that reflected what we were hoping to do with this project. So what are the road design and construction standards? Those are the technical engineering, design, and construction requirements for public road and bridge improvements that are under Washington County's jurisdiction. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in the next slide. And then the transportation system plan is an element of the county's comprehensive plan. It's our 20-year plan for our transportation system. Beaverton has their own transportation system plan. Washington County's is generally consistent with the city of Beaverton's, but of course it covers the whole county. So I'm hoping this shows up on people's screens. Jean and I talked in advance of this presentation and thought this would be helpful to include. This is a map showing roads that are under Washington County jurisdiction that are within the city of Beaverton. So the green here is the city limits, and the blue lines you see on top of it are the roads that are under county jurisdiction. So Washington County's road design and construction standards apply to roads that are under county jurisdiction. And that includes these roads in blue, even though they're within the city of Beaverton. When we have a roadway that goes through a city, we coordinate extensively with that particular city, because when development comes in, it goes through land use review with the city, but improvements are made on the county roads. So we have really great relationships in Washington County with our city partners. We coordinate all the time. We communicate a lot as things are built. So when Washington County updates our road design and construction standards, it really does have an impact on the city of Beaverton. Additionally, most of us don't stay in the city that we live. We travel all around the county, all around the region. Oftentimes we don't know what city we're in and we really don't care. We just need the road to get us to where we need to go using the mode that we're using at that time. So this is just a little bit of background information about what roadways we're talking about. So I'm not going to read this whole slide, but Washington County's Transportation System Plan has a number of strategies that talk about complete streets. This is what we think of as our enabling language. We already have these policies that are prioritizing multimodal travel, prioritizing design standards that promote safety and provide multimodal function, but we didn't have that necessarily reflected in our design standards. So this is our enabling language that allows us to do this next phase of work. This slide just shows the schedule. As I said, we've been doing this in earnest for about 18 months. We are now at a public engagement phase of the project. We have our online open house active right now. For the next couple of months, we'll be taking in the feedback that we hear from you tonight and other community members we're engaging with, take it back to our Board of Commissioners. We will be working with our consultant to prepare graphics that reflect what we'd like to see in our updated standards. And then the Board of Commissioners is expected to adopt it probably in May of this year, and then we will have our new updated standards in place. So just a little bit about the community outreach we've done for this project and where we're at now. We started it out with 12 targeted stakeholder interviews representing different community interests who use our roadways. We presented to the Washington County Coordinating Committee, which is made up of all of the mayors of Washington County and technical staff from the cities. We also created a project website. The phase that we're in now is our online open house, and the purpose of the slide is to share the website, but we'll share that with you later as well, I'm sure. We're also doing community group and committee presentations. I'm here tonight. I have done this for a couple of other community groups, and we'll be doing more throughout the rest of this month. If you're a part of other groups that would be interested in this, we're happy to share it. Just let me know. And then we're doing additional outreach to the cities of Washington County through the Washington County Coordinating Committee again. So now I'm going to jump into the proposed updates. So the proposed updates are to include area types for each functional classification. Functional classification is again that arterial and collector designation. And then that the design details would vary by those area types. So the specific elements of the design that would vary would be the bicycle facility options, sidewalk width, the design / target speeds for the road, if there's an on-street parking option, and then the lane width. So the first area type that we designated is the town center, Main Street, or station area. These are areas that are very pedestrian friendly. They have a lot of different higher density type activities. There's usually a mix of shopping and housing. People are accessing this on foot and by bike, public transportation. Lots of people are moving in between places. So our proposed design updates for the town center, Main Street station areas is to have more protection for bicycles and pedestrians, an on-street parking option, again, to reflect the commercial activity in these areas, lower design and target speed, and then narrower vehicle lanes and medians. Our next area type is other urban. So this is within the urban growth boundary, or for example, within a city. And these are the areas that are not town centers, but they're still urban. So we have a mix of different types of land uses. This is showing the area around Butner and Murray Boulevard. It's a mix of single family, multifamily, campuses, some large big box type commercial activity. Our proposed design updates would be more protection for bicyclists and pedestrians, and on-street parking option only for collectors and only in residential areas, lower design / target speed, and narrower vehicle lanes and medians. And then for a rural area type, City of Beaverton, this isn't such a concern to you when you're in the city, but if you are a person who leaves the city and goes and rides your bike out in the rural area or needs to drive out there, you might be interested in this. So we are heavily restricted by state law in what we can do in the rural area, and that's why we don't have a proposed design update at this time. Our county standard is a 6-foot shoulder on a rural road. A lot of that has to do with our limits and what we can fund for maintenance and projects in the rural area. So I'm going to jump into the cross sections now. This is our existing arterial road cross section for Washington County. It's a rural road on the left side and an urban road on the right side of this. There is no differentiation by area type, just one drawing. We have a 45-mile-an-hour design speed, a 6-foot bike lane with no protective treatment other than a single stripe, a 5-foot sidewalk, 12-foot vehicle lanes, 14-foot median, and on-street parking is not allowed in any context. So our proposed update for an arterial in the town center Main Street station area would be a 30-mile-an-hour design target speed, a buffered 6.5-foot bike lane with optional green paint. And when we say buffered, that's that striped painted on-street buffer. I'm going to talk a little bit more about bike protection options, but this would be our base standard. So 8-foot sidewalk, a buffer zone for light poles, benches, mailboxes, and landscaping so that those things are not interfering with sidewalk use, 11-foot vehicle lanes, a 13-foot median, and an option for on-street parking, again, reflecting the commercial nature of these areas. And this is showing a 5-lane cross section where there's 2 vehicle lanes in each direction, and then a 3-lane option where there's on-street parking. There could be different alternatives that mix these up together. You could, for example, not have on-street parking, but only have a 3-lane facility. So this is just showing what these 2 examples would be. And then just for comparison, what would an arterial look like in the other urban context? So outside of a town center, it's similar, slightly higher design speed at 35 miles an hour, the same 6.5-foot buffered bike lane with optional green paint, slightly smaller sidewalk, 6-foot sidewalk, but still has a buffer zone, 11-foot vehicle lanes, a wider median than in the previous, and this reflects heavier freight use on these other urban areas, and then on-street parking would not be an option in these other urban areas. So in this presentation, I'm not going through collectors, but you can see that in our online open house, and I hope you do take a chance to check that out. This is the point where I'm actually going to stop sharing this presentation and jump over to the online open house because I want to be able to show you the options for protected bicycle facilities and hear your feedback on that. So I'm going to end that slideshow and then start sharing this. Okay, so stop that share, and now we will share this. Jean, are we seeing the online open house now?
You're good.
Okay, great. So this is what the landing page looks like. We have tables down here which go through different elements of what we're doing. This table goes through the community types, the arterial street designs, collector street designs, and then what I was hoping to get to, pedestrian and bicycle designs. So while our proposed standard for a road would be the buffered striped bike lane, we understand that there's often a preference for a higher level of protection. And so what we'd like to include in our standard is our preferred options for cases where we want to have higher protection on a facility, reflecting that there's higher speeds, higher vehicle use, and we want to create that greater comfort for bicycles and pedestrians. So our online open house has 8 different options for how we could do that higher level of protection. We're really interested in hearing from the community about which of these options they would prefer so that we know which one or ones to include in our standard as the option for when we are going to go to a higher level of protection. So the first one here is what you've seen in the standard already. That's that striped painted buffer. The bike lane is right next to the cars otherwise. This graphic is showing a buffered bike lane with parking next to it. There's an alternative way to do this where you have the bike lane next to the curb and the parking next to the vehicles. That's another option we could consider, but it's not shown in the graphics. We then show this buffered bike lane with those flexible vertical posts. I think people may have seen this. City of Portland uses them in a number of different locations. So if you've been around, you've probably seen these before. They are just attached directly into the asphalt, usually within the painted buffer. But there's no other physical separation. It's kind of more of a, if a car were to cross into it, they would hear that they had hit the plastic post, but it doesn't really stop a vehicle. So another way of doing that is in this next image, which is called the buffered bike lane with the tough curbs. So tough curbs are plastic curbs that can be screwed directly into the asphalt. They're pretty mobile and easy to move. They're oftentimes used for pilot projects that sometimes become fairly permanent in other jurisdictions. And then it's optional to have those flexi posts put in them. So it's a visual cue as well as somewhat of a physical cue. The next option is a buffered bike lane with a low concrete curb. So this is where you would have a regular curb basically poured in between where the cyclist is and where the traffic is. The next option is a raised bike lane. So this is where there's usually an angled curb that separates the bike lane. So it's a little bit higher up than traffic. If you've been out in Hillsborough on Veterans, it's built similar to this graphic. And then we have our two highest levels of protection next. So this is a cycle track with a curved median. This is not shown as a planted median, but it could be, but it actually provides more physical separation for a cyclist. And then the next option is cycle track at sidewalk level. This is similar to a multi-use path, but normally you would have different types of treatment so that the bike lane visually looks different than the sidewalk, but they're next to each other. And then there's a landscape strip between this and the street. So those are the options that we're talking about. And I just gave a lot of words. And so I'm really interested in hearing your feedback and finding out what you think about the area type designations we've selected, what you think about the changes we're proposing for the cross sections, and then really what you think about these different types of higher levels of protection for bicyclists.
Great, well, let's open it up to the committee for any feedback you have immediately looking at these. Cara, do you have any thoughts?
I have one quick question.
Sure.
How high are the curbs on the ones that you have there that says cycle track with curb medium in them?
That's a good question. It's generally a standard curb width. So Stacy, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it can vary. So it can be 3 inches to 5 inches. So, I mean, it's not shown specifically there because we don't really know what we would do. And so that's the type of feedback, you know, a low mountable curb.
Okay.
Obviously doesn't offer a lot of protection from a car coming into the lane, but it is something, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
And as an outcome of this phase of the work, we wanted to go out to the public with these options so that we could get feedback on which they prefer before we do the technical engineering specifications, like exactly how high the curb would need to be in Washington County. And so that's something we're interested in hearing more about.
I see Corey has his hand up. Let's go to Corey and then John after Corey.
I guess I'd like to give the committee just a bit of perspective on this engineering standard or this complete streets redesign. Is that this might be one of the most significant things, one of the most significant things that you can have comments and impact on for Washington County and how they develop streets in the future. So this is a pretty critical thing for people to consider.
Great, helpful feedback, Corey. So I think Corey's saying go fill out the online survey and think about these types of facilities and what you'd like to ride on. So John, I think you were next.
There we go. I think I'm going to be in the minority on this, but my commuting experience includes going, from the west side of Portland to the east side of Portland, and I'm really used to having. I like having my own bike lane, but I often go out into the vehicle lanes to make turns. Sometimes there's a good reason to be over in the vehicle lane. And I'm just worried. It seems like these design concepts really emphasize putting a barrier that would send you right over the handlebars if you weren't paying attention. If you did want to go out into the lane of traffic. And I just wouldn't want to go over the handlebars in front of traffic because there are bricks or soft grass or, you know, plastic bumpers. I guess I may be in the minority here, but I like having my own lane, but I also like the freedom and flexibility to migrate in and out of the vehicle lanes.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really important feedback. We have talked about that a bit. In this graphic in particular, the consultant showed this as a continuous curve, but in reality, it would have breaks in it just for that reason, because if there's a block in it, if there's debris on the road or in the lane, if there's, you know, all kinds of different things can go wrong where you do need to go into the lane, or you need to get out in advance of an intersection where you have to make a left turn, for example. So we had talked about having the graphic updated to reflect that, but we ran out of time to have that done. So that's something that we need to show when we're doing these.
Yeah, I hope I didn't interrupt you, but, you know, for example, people park in the bike lanes all the time, and people put their trash containers and there are other barriers and obstacles in the bike lane. And sometimes you need to make a fast exit. And again, I just, I don't want to repeat myself, but just don't want to create a hazard for the bicyclists by having all of these, you know, protected barriers.
That's very good feedback. Can I go next if no one else is in the queue?
Go for it, Amanda.
Okay. I wanted to speak out in favor of the buffered bike lane with the flexible vertical posts, because there is space between the posts for cyclists to weave in and out if they need to. At the same time, it's flexible, right? So if an emergency vehicle needed to go down that road, hypothetically, they could get into the bike lane to go to their emergency site. But then by that token, I think one of the things Beaverton would like to encourage is alternative means of transportation as a commuter. So if you have people who want to become a bike commuter for the first time, having something like a vertical post might give them a better physical sense of safety, that there is something literally between them and traffic, and hopefully would make them feel safer about becoming a bike commuter for the first time.
I have some feedback as well, but I think Annee was in line in front of me if she'd like to go next.
Thank you, Michael. My question goes to other forms of transportation. So recently I've seen a lot more electric bicycles, electric scooters, both on the sidewalks and in the bike lanes. And just wonder, like, I don't even know what is the most appropriate place do those, you know, vehicles belong, and how will the planning and the outreach take into consideration those other modes of transportation?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. Jean and I actually just had a phone call. Was that yesterday, Jean, where we were talking about bike shares and scooter shares, and Portland has changed their bike fleet to e-bikes. And so just thinking about what opportunities there are for Washington County and when would we start to see those things out here. So I think that's an evolving issue. I know Portland has had a lot of struggles with the scooters in particular and where they go and interactions with pedestrians. I expect that that's something that will happen in Washington County more as well as we go forward. So it's not necessarily a part of this project, but it is something that we need to be thinking about going forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And Michael?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. My sort of feedback on this is having commuted a lot by bike on the sorts of roads you're talking about, both collectors and arterials, and in particular Shoals Ferry, which I believe is a Washington County facility.
It sure is.
I would say for me, both the buffered and the buffered with the flexible posts don't feel sufficient in terms of protection from traffic, especially on Shoals Ferry, where I think I was around for when they added in the buffered bike lanes. Even with that addition, with the high speed traffic going by, it still felt very sort of tenuous to bike along. And when I had the option, I would just take the sidewalk. And in terms of the vertical posts, when I commute up Beaverton Hillsdale, which I know is not, at least the part I was on was not a Washington County facility. The vertical posts did not feel like sufficient protection, and seeing them knocked over or broken off even felt maybe discouraging because it just made me think like, oh, drivers just kind of regularly knock into these, and you know, that felt a little dangerous. So that's just sort of my experience with these sorts of protections, and I would be very happy to see some of the sort of higher standards, like the curbed and the cycle tracks.
Just looking for a show of hands. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll make one. That's what I think Michael's making a good point as far as seeing what can potentially happen is with the polls and whether those are really being observed or not. So certainly something that potentially is a little bit more separation with the raised surface, but obviously recognizing cost plays into this. Something like the Tufts with the poles at least is giving that visual cue to drivers, as well as if they were to start to rub up against one of those Tufts, that's going to also give them sense that they're leaving their lane a little bit. So I think that might be, if there's something to look at as a compromise, maybe something to consider. I would have a bit of a concern when you were mentioning with having the sidewalk or the parking along the side of the road, or even having the bike lane to the right of parking, is just the potential for somebody to get doored if somebody's parking and then opening the passenger door or the driver's side door. That's always a concern to me. I'm also curious, you may have mentioned this at the beginning, but sort of the evolution of adopting the complete street philosophy and how that came about, because with applications to the League of American Bicyclists and something that we've done as a city and being a bike friendly city is they kind of look for that language and seeing communities adopting that complete street approach. So I'm just kind of a little curious about that as well.
So the complete streets enabling language comes from our transportation system plan, and those policies were adopted back in 2014.
Okay, so it's been for a while. Okay.
Yeah, so we've had them in the transportation system plan for quite a while. The current road design and construction standards, I think, were adopted in 2011. So they predated it. We went through TSP update, got this great enabling language, and now we're at the point where we want our standards to start to reflect some of that as well.
Okay, neat. Other members of the committee in our community here, any additional thoughts, comments? This is a great opportunity to give that feedback from.
We've got some questions in the chat.
Yeah, and I see both Corey and Amy have hands up. I think it's Corey then Amy. So how do you want to do it, Mike?
Why don't we do our chat questions and then we can go to Corey and Amy.
Okay. Okay, I'll read them out loud. Let's see. This is from ENG. In your plan for town centers and main streets, you call for a planned traffic speed of 30 miles an hour. Why have you made that decision as opposed to a lower speed? Town centers and main streets are areas of high foot traffic, and that will inevitably lead to conflict. At those speeds, the conflicts between cars can be very serious. Who wants to answer that, Stacy or Erin?
Well, I'll start by saying that the current standard is 45 miles an hour for an arterial in any situation. And most of our arterials are providing a mobility function. We have a lot of different users out there. And so 30 miles an hour, while acknowledging that that's still a really high speed and it's higher than what some of our neighboring jurisdictions have considered for their streets, is still reflective. These are arterial roads that are serving that mobility purpose. And so it's a bit of a balance there. Now, as many of you on the committee may be aware, the speed that's actually set on the road is out of our control at Washington County. The design speed and the target speed is a little bit of a different thing. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy because he is the expert in speed setting.
Well, with that intro, how could I go wrong, right? So,
right.
Yeah, so in the past, our design speeds have been, so Erin said, 45 was the standard. Well, in engineering practice, typically there's a factor of safety built into it. So the road could actually be driven at 50 miles an hour or higher, depending on what that factor of safety is. And so a philosophy change in this road standards is that we're designing the road for the speed we want vehicles to travel. And so then we won't get that escalation in speeds. So, right now, many of you travel on county arterials that are posted 45 and frequently the operating speeds are higher than that. And so through design, through the different features we can build into the system, when it's built initially, we're hoping to drive those speeds down and they'll be self-regulating.
Great, thank you both. So I'm just going to suggest that if anyone wants to go look in the chat, there are a few other comments from our members of the public. I just looked at the time and realized it's now 8:23, so we technically have 7 minutes. My update can be very brief because I like that you guys are really engaging on this topic. So let's actually go to Corey and then Amy, and just for the sake of things, we'll be able to download the chat, and Michael, I can share that with you so you can capture some of these comments for the notes, but we'll download the chat so we can all have it later. Okay, Corey.
Yeah, one other point of consideration, I think I heard somebody mention before, the use of those vertical pylons as separators in the city of Portland. City of Portland is using those as an interim condition until they can reconstruct streets. So it's not considered to be a permanent separator solution. So.
Okay.
Right. They're oftentimes used for pilot temporary type projects, and then something more permanent can be put in later as a part of a capital project or something like that. It's a faster solution.
And Annie?
I think it was Amy who's got her hand.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry.
Amy, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm muted. I just wanted to echo kind of a lot of comments that were made earlier and in the chat about making the bike lanes more safe for more amateur riders or people who are newer to alternative transportation methods. So I kind of like to advocate for the ones where there's the barriers. I think the two on the lower part of the screen there, I really like because they give a great barrier between like the cars and the bicyclists. So yeah, I kind of would like to advocate for those. I think that they're great for families as well.
Very good input. All right. Well, thank you so much, Erin, Stacy, and everyone for that great show. And we'll all make sure we're getting online and providing input there as well. And certainly as this is moving forward, we hope you can come back and keep us updated and continue to get our input because we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And Jean, I'll let you wrap up as far as the City of Beaverton updates, and then if any
Sure.
members have anything to share, we'll go from there and be done.
Okay, great, thanks. Let's see. I mentioned when we had that little pause earlier, city manager update. I think Councilor Hasan covered the item around sort of our equity and public safety update. She mentioned that the Human Rights Advisory Committee wrapped up their work in having sort of conversations with the community to learn about experiences that people have had with public safety, as well as address systemic racism within city structures and practices. So there's some information in the email I shared with all of you. And if you want to stay up to date on the city's equity efforts and work with the community, if you go to beavertonoregon.gov/beheard, BEHEARD, you can find that there. What else? If Beaverton, we received what's called a WIFIA loan. It's a US EPA grant program. It's the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. It's a $81 million loan that will help pay for city water systems projects. And ultimately, it's going to save Beaverton an estimated $31.3 million. So there's a series of projects that it's going to fund. We're really excited about it. You can learn more on our website, beavertonoregon.gov/water. And then one last thing, if you have a library card and you get emails from the Washington County Cooperative Library Services, you may have had an email from them announcing that they have eliminated overdue fines. So no more charges for overdue materials, and all existing overdue fines have been removed from patron accounts. This was really made because the mission of the Washington County Library Service is to really serve all residents equally, affordably, and with easy access. So still return your library materials on time, but also know that there are no more fines. So that's exciting news. I'll just share one last thing. Mike and I have been talking about our agendas, kind of looking ahead. And I will share with you that next month, I have been working with my colleagues in the Planning Division in Community Development. They staff the Planning Commission, and we are going to be putting together a presentation to share with both you and them, really to kind of do sort of a transportation planning. I'll call it a 101. Maybe it's a boot camp. I'm not sure what we'll name it. But wanting to give you all a little more of sort of the bigger picture of transportation planning and policy within our state, our region, our county and city, to give you sort of more context about the transportation system, so we can talk about sort of how cycling kind of fits within that. So, an important document for us is the Active Transportation Plan. City Council adopted that back in 2018. A few of you were a part of that planning process, but I think many of you weren't. And I really want to help orient you to that key piece of planning and policy, because I think it'll help give you some more context. So we'll have that on the agenda next month. So more to come on that. I'll stop there. Mike, what else is left on our agenda?
We just have member comments and announcements. And John, did you want to make another quick plug for Salmonberry Trail and the trail crew projects you got coming up?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. I didn't expect that. I'm helping the Salmonberry Trail, coordinating volunteer work parties. We're clearing sections of the trail, and we're pulling out invasive species like Scotch broom. We are having a work party about once a month, sometimes twice a month. The next one is Sunday, February 21st. You all are invited. We're trying, with so many people that are interested in helping, we're trying to have smaller groups in light of the COVID-19 issues. So the work parties are in the 8 to 10 to 12 size. We practice social distancing. We stay away from each other. And if you want to spend some time out on the Salmonberry Trail on the old rail line and help clear brush, please contact me.
Any other members? Anything to share? Any comments for the good of the order? All right. Well,
I'm
thank
going to
you.
chime in real quick.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to chime in real quick. Nathaniel put a question in the chat.
Okay.
And Nathaniel, I would always say just like unmute yourself and chime in, but he wants to know, is that something kids could help with, John? Are kids welcome? Is there an age range? Oh, you just muted yourself.
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Right. As far as an age range for volunteers?
Oh, not really. We've had parents with toddlers and kids in the backpacks. You know, there's some walking. We'll typically walk a couple of miles, as far as 2 miles to the work site, and then work for a couple of hours and walk out. So I would just say, you know, if you can bring a toddler, that'd be great. We have had many youths, Boy Scouts, we've had dogs. You can bring whoever you want to.
Good. Well, that sounds good. Well, again, thank you everybody for participating tonight and coming to our meeting. And I will owe you 3 minutes at our next meeting here. And Nathaniel, sometime we're gonna have to talk about hockey.
Happy to.
Okay. Thank you again, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I know Annee had to leave a little early. I wonder if she forgot to turn off her thing. We'll give her the boot here in a minute. Megan, thank you again.
Thank you again. Yes.
And Megan, we're not going to, well, I'll see you, but Mike won't see you for a little while.
Yep.
So
hope everything goes well with baby and all of that fun.
Thank you.
That's what one of my wife's
Hey,
nieces
Megan.
just had her child a week or so ago out